Good day, everyone, and welcome to the QEM Heroes webinar series. I'm Christine Wood, and I serve as the Assistant Program Director for the Heroes Fellows Program at QEM. And for more than 30 years, QEM has been a national catalyst for STEM education transformation and research capacity building. Currently, the QEM network serves nearly 900 colleges and universities and reaches more than 8,000 individuals nationwide. This webinar is part of the HEROES initiative. The HEROES program brings together former federal scientists to lend their expertise and support to the STEM research and education communities. Our fellows are here to provide tools and tips for navigating the funding landscape, developing STEM programs and partnerships, and improving talent retention in in-demand fields. We hope this series promotes engagement with our HEROES Fellows and provides valuable resources to our participants. As a note, the webinar recordings and slides will be available in the QEM Resource Hub. By attending this webinar, you will soon be added to the QEM network and granted access to the hub. So look out for an email inviting you to access the hub. And I'm so proud to introduce our Heroes Fellows today. Shadei Laird is a naval systems safety engineer whose research background focused on safety analysis and risk mitigation for complex naval systems, with prior experience supporting ammunition and ship self-defense systems for NAVSEA. She also has extensive experience in STEM education and supporting engineering workforce development programs such as the Science, Mathematics, and Research for Transformation, or SMART Scholarship for Service program. In addition, she has also coordinated the College of Southern Maryland's Workforce Development Program with the University of Maryland College Park and the Naval Air Warfare Center Aircraft Division. Lastly, she has also been a participant in the U.S. Army Sustainment Command's internship program for engineers. And Dr. Jehnae Linkins is a mechanical engineer, researcher, and founder of the nonprofit Don't Adjust Your Crown, where she advances equity in STEM through mentorship, design, and community engagement. She earned her PhD in mechanical engineering from the University of Maryland, where her research focused on equity-centered and Black-centered design in emerging technologies. Dr. Linkins works at the intersection of engineering, social impact, and inclusive research, helping institutions reimagine how STEM can better serve historically marginalized communities. So without further ado, I will turn the floor over to our presenters today.
Thank you, Dr. Wood.
Can everyone see this? Should be able to.
I see it. Good.
Okay, cool.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shadei Laird, and I'm joined by my colleague, Dr. Jehnae Linkins, and we're here to talk about how you can find it, fit it, and fund it when it comes to identifying funding opportunities that align with your institution's strengths. So we hope you will enjoy this presentation, and it is interactive. So we're looking to hear from you throughout this presentation and hopefully pass on some nuggets that you can take with you. Next slide, please. Okay, so our first slide is just a Zoom webinar housekeeping slide where we want you to know that all views expressed are based on our personal experiences and opinions, and they do not represent the federal government, QEM network, or anyone other than ourselves. And the answer to some questions we get asked often, the slides will be available, and the webinar is being recorded. And if you have questions, feel free to submit them to the Q&A because we're looking forward to addressing them. And please make sure you complete the post-webinar survey so that we can know what was done well and which you might be looking to hear more on in the future. Okay, so like I just said, this presentation is interactive. It's the best way for us to work together is to hear directly from you. So I'm going to give everyone on the line a second to use the QR code to join us with Menti. So you can either go to menti.com and use the code, or you can scan with your phone. And what Menti will allow you to do is when we pop up a poll, you can enter your answer, and we won't show your name or anything, but we can see how everyone is responding to the question that I asked. And I'm not sure if I missed anything on that, Jehnae, but okay. Jehnae's the Menti expert. All right, next slide. So this is just an overview slide for those of you who may be joining us for the first time about QEM and the HEROES program. We are, I guess, HEROES stands for Hiring Experienced Researchers to Optimize Ecosystems in STEM. And it is a national capacity development and technical assistant initiative launched by provide assistance, includes grant proposal development, assistance and guidance, on-site and virtual workshops and trainings, one-on-one technical assistance sessions if you're looking to find and fit some, funding opportunities at your university, weekly informational webinars, which you can scan the code for QEM events for some of our upcoming session. And also, we're happy to attend a conference you may be planning as speakers. Next slide, please. Okay. So why this conversation has to be had for HBCUs and community colleges, because for many different reasons, but we all know that the landscape for both of those type of institutions can be different from just a traditional R1 university. We know that faculty have to wear many, many hats already. They're expected to teach, mentor, advise, serve on committees, and pursue funding at the same time. So we'll delve a little deeper into this in our further presentation. But one thing, depending on what type of funding you're applying for, you have the opportunity to sometimes put in for a program coordinator. So it might not have the biggest demand on your time. You can have a person run that program, and they can come to you for questions. So that's something to think about for certain funding opportunities. Also, we know that many of the smaller institutions like the community colleges may have a limited research development infrastructure or a small sponsor programs office, or maybe your department is the small program office. So we want to help you as far as just identifying the opportunities and the right opportunities that set you up for success to get the funding. Also, we know that faculty has a lot of strong ideas or research areas that they're passionate about, and we can help translate those research capacities at your universities into proposals. Additionally, external funding can support research, student success, workforce development, curriculum innovation, community partnerships, and institutional capacity building. Excuse me. Next slide, please. Okay. So this is just the 3 steps that we've outlined to go over with you about the process for funding. We're going to give details of what it looks like to find it, find the opportunity that really lines up with what you as a university are able to offer and what you need as far as your institutional goals. And then you have, find it is the search part. And then the fit it is making sure that it aligns with those goals and the readiness. And then to fund it, you can't get the funding without making sure that that proposal gets submitted. And I just want to encourage people, if you have something, to submit it. One thing that I didn't Always know, and people might not always know, is that you can get feedback from the program officers. They might say, hey, we want you to tweak a few things, go back and do that, and we will fund it. So it's very important that, again, the habit of submitting. Sometimes that feedback is exactly what you need for your next proposal to be standout and award winning. Next slide, please. Okay, so I kind of talked a little bit about this earlier, that funding can look different across institutions. Uh, Research is good and important, but there also are other funding opportunities for student STEM persistence and retention that also can come with a scholarship component for students, the curriculum redesign, workforce development, industry partnerships, teacher preparation and transfer pathways. So hopefully this gives a closer look into maybe how at your community college or your HBCU, the different type of funding that's available, and not just think that if it's not research-based is the only opportunity that you have to pursue funding. Next slide, please. Okay, so step one, find it, um, target the relevant opportunities, and use multiple resources. We all know of, the certain websites, grant.gov, or working with, the National Science Foundation. Also, I encourage people, I see a lot of opportunities on LinkedIn, a search with your keywords. I think I'm getting ahead of myself because some of this is on upcoming slides. Also, engage with your colleagues and mentors. If you're math faculty and you're a part of AMATIC, when you go to a conference or even when you leave the conference, talk to your colleagues about what opportunities are existing, and that's a good way to leverage your network. And also, I really want to emphasize this last one, organize and track. Just as far as the deadlines, it does make sense to do the ones with the upcoming deadlines quicker. And also, sometimes agencies will put out something similar. So maybe you missed it this year, but have an idea of what they're looking for, what their core needs are. So that might be what you need to get a jump on developing that proposal to be ready for a similar announcement that may come out from the same agency or someone else at a later time. Okay, so this is just some specifics about where you can be looking for funding, existing programs that are out there. You have the National Science Foundation Advanced Technological Education Program. With NASA, you have the Minority Service Institution opportunities. You have the Department of Defense, also the Department of War, that has many opportunities for funding. And then also think about the private foundations. I've seen many opportunities through the private foundations as well for funding specifically for HBCUs, or specifically for making sure all students have access to STEM programs and learning. So leave this up for just a second so you can see what else is on here. But yeah, these are definitely places where you can start looking. Next slide. Okay. Another way for finding it is start with your institutional priority or project idea. Are you looking specifically for research equipment? Are you looking to develop a workforce program? Excuse me. Are you looking to improve student retention? What are you looking for, and what will shape the type of funding that will be helpful in your search. So certain keywords, for example, research equipment, workforce training, those are keywords. You put them with funding in the search, you can see what returns. Also, like I mentioned in the previous slide, it's always a good start to go to grants.gov, and you can do the same thing, put in keywords, specifically maybe HBCU or minority serving institution or community college or research equipment, and see what returns. You have the Department of Education, foundation websites, and of course you have your state agencies. And then, as I mentioned before, save these opportunities in a tracker. See what is important and relevant to these agencies, and that should help shape your proposal. Next slide, please. Okay. I think this is a Menti. Okay, there it is. All right, so this is a Menti poll, and I want to ask the question, and okay, you guys already responded. What is the hardest part of finding funding opportunities at your institution? So you have one, I'm not sure what opportunities fit my work. I don't know which opportunities are realistic for my institution. I'm new to grants funding altogether. I don't know where to look, and I don't have time to search regularly. Oh, I like how it responds in real time. All right. Okay, I see more people responding and registering. This is good. Okay. Okay. Well, it looks like the top two have the most responses. I'm not sure what opportunities fit my work, and I'm, excuse me, I'm new to grant funding altogether. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you for that first part, Shadei. And I'm going to keep us going to the next part.
Thanks.
All right, so for step 2, we have fitting. So we're assessing alignment and readiness. So the second step of this framework is really where we want to slow down and ask whether an opportunity is actually worth pursuing. So fit is really about alignment and readiness. So just because a grant exists, and even just because it offers a significant amount of money, does that mean is a good fit for your institution? Does it mean it's a good fit for your project or even your current capacity? So at this stage, you're asking yourself, does this opportunity align with the work that we can actually do? Does it align with our mission and our students? And do we have time, the data, the partnerships, staffing, whatever infrastructure that may look like, needed to put together a competitive proposal? And lastly, and I guess more importantly, to carry out the project if we were funded. So this is also the stage where you may want to talk with your program officers, your research development staff, or even collaborators just to get some more clarity on what that looks like. And I want to emphasize that saying no at this stage does not necessarily mean a failure. It just means in many cases that no could be like a poor fit for the opportunity. And it also going to protect your time, your energy for opportunities that are more realistic and more strategic if they may come around. So just some questions to ask before you say yes to the grant. So the first is its mission and its program fit. Does this opportunity align with our institution's mission, our student population, and what kind of work we actually do, whether that be in the lab or at the institution? So if the proposal would require us to become a completely different institution or build a project that doesn't make sense for our context, then that would be a red flag. Secondly is capacity and readiness. So do we have the time, the people, and the infrastructure to carry this out? Well, we need external partners to make this project feasible. And do we already have some evidence or some data points to support that would support a strong proposal? And third is that strategic value. So even if opportunity is a fit, Is it worth the effort required to submit a competitive proposal? Will it help us build toward that future funding, strengthen partnerships, or even advance institutional priorities in a meaningful way? So these questions are all important because they force us to think beyond the excitement of the opportunity and focus on whether it actually makes sense for us. So one of the most important points we want to make here today is that institutional differences are not necessarily limitations, but they can also be strengths as well. So community colleges bring a lot to the table. Like Shadei talked about earlier, was that workforce alignment and development. They also talk about strong local employer relationships, applied teaching, student support, transfer pathways, and access to first generation and adult learners. HBCUs, on the other hand, also brings distinctive strengths. We talk about the deep community trust, a strong track record for educating Black talent, culturally grounded mentoring, equity-centered student support, and a mission-driven legacy that matters. So part of the fit is not just asking, can we compete? It's more so asking, how can we clearly articulate the strengths that we already have? So your institution does not need to look like or be an R1 to be fundable. It just needs to be able to tell a compelling story about its impact, its capacity, and why it's well positioned to do the work that's going to be proposed. So another Menti poll we have coming up, and we'd love to hear from you. So think about your own institutional role. Or so what most often stops you from moving forward with an opportunity? So our options are lack of time, unclear institutional support, not enough staff or collaborators. I'm not sure whether the project is competitive, and I don't know if the opportunity truly fits our mission or capacity. So I'll give a minute or two for answers. Oh, great. So the first two we have popped up are tied, unclear institutional support, and I'm not sure whether the project is competitive. Even with that unclear institutional support, I mean, like we talked about earlier, finding, digging into that research development office, seeing what resources they have available, seeing what they have to offer as a faculty that you are able to learn from. So most like places may have like some workshops, great workshops and things like that you may be able to jump onto in order to prepare yourself to get ready for submitting that proposal to the funding agency. Another person said lack of time. So as always, I mean, I wish there was more than 24 hours in a day because I have so much to do. So I can understand that, especially with mentoring students, with teaching, and doing like other research and things like that. So that also understandable also. 30 seconds and then I'll keep going. But this seems to be the consensus. All right, so step three, we're talking about funded, so apply and secure that support. So the third step is funded, and this is what the execution phase looks like. What happens once you have identified a promising opportunity and decided that it's worth pursuing. So at this stage, the work becomes less about whether the opportunity is a fit and more about how to position the proposal for success. That includes building a compelling narrative, thinking carefully about the budget, making sure the project clearly aligns with the sponsor's priorities, and ensuring that all of the compliance and submission pieces are in place. But what I want to emphasize here is that that funded is not just about writing, it's about coordination. It's about making sure that the right people are involved early on so that responsibilities are clear, and that you understand your internal processes and timelines. Strong proposals are rarely written in isolation, and they're built through planning, coordination, and a lot of behind the scenes coordination. So just making sure that your team is well equipped and well aware of what's going on and what you need for you all to succeed. But this is one of the most important slides, I feel like, in the whole presentation because it speaks to what often gets missed. Before you even start writing, there are a few things you would want to do. So make sure you're reading the solicitation closely all the way through, confirming that you're eligible, understanding whether partners are required, contacting your sponsored programs or grants office early rather than at the last minute, clarify internal deadlines and routing processes, and decide who is responsible for each piece of the proposal. So that includes the narrative, the budget, evaluation or data, letters of support, and any required attachments or compliance documents. This matters because at many institutions, the grants or sponsored programs office may be involved primarily at the routing or compliance stage. So if faculty don't understand what needs to happen before submission, proposals can quickly become rushed or disorganized. So this slide is really about encouraging people to build a process before they build the narrative. So even strong project ideas can get weakened by a few common proposal pitfalls. So we just wanted to making sure that we are naming some of those very directly and clearly today. So one of them, one is chasing an opportunity that doesn't really fit the project or the institution. Not being aligned with what your institutional goals are. Another is waiting too late to involve the grants office or key collaborators. We also see that people underestimate the time needed for budgets, approvals, attachments, and institutional routing. Another common issue is the weak articulation of institutional capacity. So sometimes the idea itself is good, but the proposal doesn't clearly explain why this institution is positioned to carry it out successfully. And finally, proposals can fall short when they don't clearly communicate student or community impact, or when they don't include a realistic plan for evaluation and sustainability. So the point here is not to scare anyone away from proposal writing. It's just to show that a lot of things that weaken the proposals are preventable if you start early and you build the right support around that process. So we just wanted to include like a simple example of what this find it, fit it, fund it, structured framework might look like in practice. So let's say we have institution that identifies a need around the retention of Black STEM students in introductory gateway courses. So that's the problem or the institutional priority. So we have a project idea that might be to develop the peer mentoring model combined with the faculty support and early academic intervention. So once that idea is on the table, the finance stage would involve identifying possible opportunities that support student success, STEM education, or equity-focused retention work. So that might include something like the NSF, IUSE, the Improving Undergraduate Student Education, I think it's STEM education, maybe the Department of Education Student Success Initiative, or even a foundation focused on STEM equity. Then we would get to that fitted stage where we're going to be asking whether the project aligns with the institution's mission, whether there's enough data or internal support to make the proposal competitive, and whether the institution has the staffing and partnerships to carry that out. And lastly, when we get to that funded stage, it becomes the work of actually organizing the proposal, developing that narrative and that budget, and getting the right people involved so that the point of this example is just to show that the funding doesn't start with a random grant search. It starts with a real institutional need, and that moves forward and outward from there. We're going to pause again and think about, hear from you guys again. So what part of the proposal development feels most challenging right now? We have writing the narrative, building the budget, gathering required documents, coordinating with institutional offices, and turning an idea into a competitive proposal. And I'll give a minute to. Oh, sorry. We have some things coming in. There's most challenging right now, building the budget. Okay. Then we have turning an idea into competitive proposal. Coordinating with institutional offices coming in third. So I'm thinking about turning an idea into a competitive proposal. So in one of our future webinars that we have coming up, we'll be having a funded lab, I guess you could say, where you could bring those ideas and those questions that you have, and we're going to help you. Shadei and I will help you to start writing, to turn those ideas into proposals, and obviously we can always talk about it as well. So thank you all for participating. And thinking about pulling this all together to wrap up the framework itself, we want to come back to the bigger picture. So find it, fit it, fund it is meant to be a continuous strategy rather than a one-time exercise. So find it helps you build a funding pipeline. Fit it helps you decide where to invest your energy, and fund it helps you to organize the people, the process, and the planning needed to move forward from opportunities to submission. So if we're taking together this framework, it can help reduce wasted effort, strengthen proposal readiness, and create a more sustainable approach to external funding. It also helps reduce burnout because you're not spending time on every opportunity that comes your way. You're focusing on the ones that are most aligned with your institution's capacity or your institution's goals, strengths, and capacity. So our hope is that this gives you a structure that you can use not just for a one-time proposal, but as a long-term funding strategy. So this webinar is just a starting point. So this session is general overview for both HBCUs and community colleges, but the broader series will go deeper. And the next session will focus more specifically on community colleges and the kinds of funding opportunities tied to workforce development, student success, STEM education, and industry partnerships. The third session will focus on HBCUs, including research, capacity building, institutional partnerships, student support, and innovation-focused opportunities. And then lastly, like I was just talking about before, the fourth session will be more of a funding lab or like a working session where you as faculty can bring your ideas, specific opportunities or proposal questions to get more interactive support and feedback. So our next webinar will be July 29th at 12 o'clock. So the next and best success story is yours. So as we close, we want to leave you with this reminder. The next success story can absolutely be yours. There's no perfect institution and there's no perfect time to start thinking more strategically about funding, but there are ways to make this process more manageable, more intentional, and more aligned with the work that you're already doing. So if you're at an HBCU or community college, and you've been feeling like the funding is something that happens somewhere else, or that you need to have a much larger research infrastructure before you can pursue these options, we hope today pushed you back on that just a bit. There's space for your institution in this funding landscape, and that the part of the work is learning how to identify and articulate where that fit exists. So with that said, thank you all for spending time with us today. We appreciate your engagement and your willingness to think through this process with us. If you have any follow-up questions or ideas you'd like to talk through, or if you're interested in Hero support, please don't hesitate to reach out to either one of us. We've also included links to our Heroes webpage, the QEM events webpage, and the webinar feedback form. And we encourage you to complete the survey because it helps us shape the next sessions in the series to better understand what that support would look like and be most useful for you moving forward. So on behalf of myself and Shadei, thank you so much. And we look forward to continuing the conversation, and we will open up for questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Linkins and Shadei. We have multiple ways you can ask questions and engage in discussion. The chat is open for everyone. You may also raise your hand to come off mute or use the Q&A tool. And we'll give people some time to percolate with their questions. B. Kelly says, I haven't been able to connect to the QEM resource page for the previous webinars that I attended. Who do I contact about getting resource access? You should receive an email soon from our IT coordinator who will give you access to the resource hub. I will follow up with him today to ensure that recent attendees to our webinars do have access to that resource. So please, thank you for your patience.
Oh, we got some things in the chat.
Sure. Wilson says, I feel like one of the most challenging things about grant submissions is that nearly everyone in science is working on overload. Finding someone who has ability and bandwidth to give guidance or feedback is so hard. Yeah. I feel like everyone's kind of at the point where we're either in burnout or we're either overloaded, like you said. And it's really not, like I said, it's not enough time in the day. 24 hours is not enough time in the day to get things done. Because everyone's teaching, everyone's mentoring. People have maybe 5 to 10 students, whatever that looks like. So it's very challenging. So I agree with that sentiment.
That also made me think that at the beginning of the funding process during the find it stage, as you've explained, one of the ways to get feedback and guidance is to contact the program officer. So if you're looking for an NSF opportunity, you see something that might align, that one of the best entrees into getting guidance and feedback is to create a one-page document that you would turn into um, a program officer to get feedback on to assess the fit of your project with the program announcement. And Dr. Erickson says, my recent challenge was having the correct tax information for a nonprofit. DC requires a bit more than just tax submissions.
I think it's different when working with like nonprofits and private organizations. There's a lot more steps. Or I don't know. It seems like there's a lot more steps involved to get things done within the submission phase. So
Yeah.
For webinar evaluation so we can get your feedback and see what we can do to meet your needs in the future. Again, we have plenty of time for questions of discussion or conversation. If you'd like, you can raise your hand and come off mute if you'd like to engage in discussion.
Oh. One thing that I've I guess noticed that has worked really well, particularly for the HBCUs, is they talk about working with a subject matter expert, particularly maybe for the Department of War. So you have someone who can speak the language of that agency. And that's what QEM, we have plenty of people who have worked with the Navy, or they've worked with the National Science Foundation, who can give you some of that insight. But I've seen people say that, maybe the professors do the writing in collaboration with someone knows how to talk the language of the sponsoring agency to be helpful. So yeah, wherever you can create those partnerships, whether on campus or university and community college and also K-12, I think that's something to look into as well. Hoping for a few more questions.
Do you have any thoughts about what might be some of the differences a proposer might face in trying to mold their proposals into something that a foundation might want versus a federal agency?
I think that's what we were talking about earlier with that alignment per se. Like if don't just go after the grant because or the funding opportunity because it's like $5 million, but they may be looking for um, rainbows and sunshine, but you may not have that. So don't try to fit yourself into that box or whatever. Look for the funding that aligns with your institution, like if it's student success or student retention or student needs. Look for those agencies that are looking for that, and not try to overshoot or say that you can do something when you might not be able to do that.
And B. Kelly would like to follow up by saying that's a really good point. I often struggle with the lingo of the government-based institutions. Everything is so wordy. That's true. And once you get access to the QEM Resource Hub B, there is a previous webinar on interpreting requests for funding proposals that ideally will help align your project proposal with what's being requested in the RFP and how to decode those and interpret them. We'll also be having a workshop coming up on that, so do look out for that in your email.
Yeah. I just like to add that uh, wherever you're applying, what you're submitting is in support of what you're saying that you're able to do. So think about it that way, that it's not just, more, paperwork or to keep you busy. They want to know, hey, once we give you these funds, especially with the more technical things that you're going to be able to do it, and that money is going to those places. So that's something I would say to keep in mind.
Well, in the absence of questions, we will say thank you very much to our panelists today for this very informative presentation. And we thank you for attending QEM webinar series. Feel free to navigate to our QEM events page, as you saw in the QR codes, to sign up for future webinars, and the Heroes Fellows program page to connect with our fellows for guidance, help developing proposals, all free services that we offer. Thank you very much for attending today.